Hello, fellow truth seekers. After watching the presidential debates, the only thing the internet could focus on was that President Trump didn't clearly condemn white supremacist and militia groups. But the second half of the question is what they knew would get him twisted up. Chris Wallace said, "But are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups and to say that they need to stand down and not add to the violence in a number of these cities, as we saw in Kenosha, as we've seen in Portland? Are you prepared specifically to do that?" To which the president knows the extreme left is mainly the cause. He's the president of the United States, and people act like he doesn't know what's really going on. He knows more information than we'll ever know, but he did say, "Sure, I'm prepared to do it. I would say, though, almost everything I see is from the left wing, not from the right wing." So he did say sure, which, given his track record, I would be tired of disavowing them every single day, too. So the president wants to talk about things that are violent and happening right now. He's only got a few minutes to tell the American people what's really going on. If there are far-right hate groups, you don't think there are also far-left hate groups? In the words of Joe Biden, come on, man. But how many times is enough? Over the last 4 years, he's had to condemn and disavow the KKK and David Duke more times than I've ever heard anyone have to. Most Americans aren't even asked to disavow the KKK. We already do. It's un-American to support any hate groups. So I put together a video showing you some of the many times the president rejected hate and supported American values of equality and moving towards a harmonious, peaceful future for America as well as the rest of the world. Deep state.
And joining us now is the Republican frontrunner, Donald Trump. Mr. Trump, thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
So, big endorsement for you from New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. During the campaign, he had some tough words for you. Do you think he was just playing politics back then? How'd you get him on board?
I think it is politics. I mean, people say things and then all of a sudden reality sets in, and he's great. He's a great guy. He's the one endorsement I really wanted. I wanted it badly. We have some great endorsements, but Chris is one that I really wanted to get, and I have many others coming, frankly. But you know, endorsements have never meant that much to me, but that is an endorsement that was good. But I love our endorsement. We have Sarah Palin. We have, as you know, Jerry Falwell Jr., and you see I'm leading with the evangelicals in just about every state and nationwide, and Jerry's helped so much. And, you know, we have, as an example, we have Joe on the border in Arizona, Sheriff Joe, and Joe Arpaio. There's nobody better for borders than Sheriff Joe, so that was a big endorsement, too. So we have some great endorsements, and a lot of them are coming.
I know you're big on Twitter. The hashtag #NeverTrump hashtag exploded on Twitter this weekend. These are Republicans saying they will never vote for you. Marco Rubio himself even used that hashtag. What do you think of that?
Well, he can do whatever he wants. You know, I signed a pledge, and the pledge is a two-way street. And if it's not that way, they're going to have a problem. They're going to have a big problem with me. We have tremendous amounts of people. We have, as you know, I'm going to Alabama today. We're going to have 25,000 people, and probably more than that. We had to go to a football stadium because no building held it. And we're going to have an amazing crowd. And yesterday in Tennessee, I had 15,000 people in a hangar. In Arkansas, you probably saw that one in the morning. In Arkansas, we had about 15,000 people in a hangar. And, you know, we have a lot of people. I'm representing people. I'm not representing myself. I'm representing a lot of anger out there. And we're not angry people, but we're angry at the way this country is being run. And a lot of them are angry at the way the Republican Party is being run, Jake.
Yeah, I want to ask you about...
The Republican Party is not being run properly.
I want to ask you about that because Republicans in Washington, D.C. are starting to tell Republican senators that they don't have to go to the convention if you're the nominee, that they should think about running against you if you're the nominee. That combined with Marco Rubio doing the Never Trump hashtag, do you think Republicans are violating the pledge?
Totally. Totally. I mean, if they want to play that game, I can play it much better than they can. And I have a lot more people than they do. And, you know, totally. If they're doing that, that's a total violation of the pledge, yes.
Yesterday, Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz released summaries of their tax returns. You have yet to do so. Rubio and Cruz have been saying that you're trying to hide something. Cruz yesterday also going on this little tirade saying that maybe the returns show that you're not as rich as you say you are, or that you gave money to Planned Parenthood, or you pay very low tax rates. Can you deny that those charges are true, and when will we see your taxes?
Well, number one, I fully disclosed my financials, and I put them in actually right on time, and nobody else did, by the way, but I put them in on time. And it's almost 100 pages of financials, and it shows over $10 billion. If you figure it out, it's over $10 billion in net worth, and it's an amazing company with great cash flow, very little debt, all of that. You can't tell anything from tax returns because you take deductions, massive deductions, and lots of other things, and you can't tell very much from a tax return. You really can't tell anything as to that. As far as gifts, I give a lot of money. I could probably release a lot of the gifts that I've given over the years, and I probably will do that sometime next week. We'll just make a listing of the various monies that I've paid for 2 charities, and I think that's a good idea, actually. But I can't release tax returns when there's an audit. Now, it's very unfair. I've been treated very unfairly by the IRS because I've been audited almost every year for 10 or 12 years. And I have friends that are very rich people. They never get audited. And so I think I've been really singled out. I don't know why I'm singled out. Maybe because I'm a very conservative, maybe because I'm Tea Party. I feel Tea Party. I've always been sort of that feeling of Tea Party. I've always had great Tea Party support. I don't know what it is, but I have been singled out. And so many of my friends, they don't even know what I'm talking about. When I say, do you get audited? They don't even know what I'm talking about. And I'm audited every year. So until the audit is completed, obviously I'm not giving my papers. And you had people on your show and on CNN where tax experts said, no, it'd be crazy to give papers before the audit is completed.
I don't know if you saw Cruz's charges, but can you deny the charges he made about you not having the worth that you have, or you've given a lot of money to groups that support
Jake, I just told you, and let Cruz go to the FEC, where I made a financial disclosure, unlike him, where he did not disclose that he borrowed money from Goldman Sachs, $1 million between Citibank and Goldman Sachs. He didn't disclose it, illegally didn't disclose it on his financial disclosure forms. I mean, Cruz shouldn't be the one talking because he didn't disclose his loans. And he made big loans from big institutions, Goldman Sachs and Citi, and he never, ever mentioned them in his financial disclosure form because he wants to talk like Robin Hood, you know, like he's Robin Hood and he's going to help the people with the banks. But in the meantime, he's borrowing money at very, very low interest rates, rates that nobody can get. And I think it's disgraceful. And then he tells me. So just to finish, I have fully disclosed my net worth, and all you have to do is go and check my financial statements because I fully disclosed my financial statements, and that was a big deal, and they're very good, and obviously you would have heard about them if they weren't because they've been gone over by everybody. As far as the tax returns, I obviously cannot give tax returns that are under audit, and every expert that you've had on your show said you shouldn't do it, you should wait till the audit is over.
I want to ask you about the Anti-Defamation League, which this week called on you to publicly condemn unequivocally the racism of former KKK Grand Wizard David Duke, who recently said that voting against you at this point would be treason to your heritage. Will you unequivocally condemn David Duke and say that you don't want his vote or that of other white supremacists in this election?
Well, just so you understand, I don't know anything about David Duke, okay? I don't know anything about what you're even talking about with white supremacy or white supremacists. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know, did he endorse me or what's going on? Because, you know, I know nothing about David Duke. I know nothing about white supremacists. And so you're asking me a question that I'm supposed to be talking about people that I know nothing about.
But I guess the question from the Anti-Defamation League is, even if you don't know about their endorsement, there are these groups and individuals endorsing you. Would you just say unequivocally you condemn them and you don't want their support?
Well, I have to look at the group. I mean, I don't know what group you're talking about. You wouldn't want me to condemn a group that I know nothing about. I have to look. If you would send me a list of the groups, I will do research on them. And certainly I would disavow if I thought there was something wrong. But you may have groups in there that are totally fine, and it would be very unfair. So give me a list of the groups, and I'll let you know.
Okay. I mean, I'm just talking about David Duke and the Ku Klux Klan here, but...
I don't know, honestly, I don't know David Duke. I don't believe I've ever met him. I'm pretty sure I didn't meet him, and I just don't know anything about him.
All right. In terms of a potential running mate, sir, you said a few days ago that you'd look for a political insider to help you get legislation through. Are you specifically looking for someone with government experience in general, such as Governor Chris Christie, or someone who has spent years on Capitol Hill, such as Governor John Kasich?
Well, I have a great business ability. I've always had a great business ability, and I built a great company, and I don't need that, really, I don't believe, for what I'm doing. I would want somebody that can, that does have a little bit of an insider track, so we can get things through Congress. He or she can work with me on getting, papers filed, papers approved, so we don't have to use executive orders like President Obama is always using executive orders because he just can't get anything approved, he can't get anything through. So I would like the idea, just conceptually, it doesn't mean I'm going to do that, but conceptually, I like the idea of a political person to go along with my abilities. Now, I'm a very political person also, which people are just about starting to find out. But I would rather have, I think, somebody that's political that can help. But the most important position, look, for vice president, you got to pick somebody who's going to be a great president. Because if something should happen, hopefully not, but if something should happen, the single most important quality would be a person that can be a great president.
All right. Donald J. Trump, thank you so much. Good luck on Tuesday, sir. We'll see you on the campaign trail.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jake.
CBS News Battleground Tracker poll shows Donald Trump comfortably ahead in the key Super Tuesday states of Georgia and Virginia, but trailing Ted Cruz in Texas, Cruz's home state. Hillary Clinton leads Bernie Sanders in the three biggest states voting on Tuesday: Georgia, Virginia, and Texas. We have both races covered, beginning with a new controversy surrounding Trump today. Here's Major Garrett.
I don't know anything about David Duke, okay? I don't know anything about what you're even talking about with white supremacy or white supremacists.
Donald Trump demurred when asked whether he'd condemn supportive comments from former Ku Klux Klan leader David Duke.
I have to look at the group. I don't know what group you're talking about. You wouldn't want me to condemn a group that I know nothing about.
But Trump's remarks today are 180 degrees from his stance Friday when he was asked about Duke's endorsement.
I didn't even know he endorsed me. David Duke endorsed me? Okay. All right. I disavow, okay?
Trump's Republican rivals pounced. Campaigning in Massachusetts, John Kasich said Trump has some explaining to do.
Donald Trump refused to disassociate himself and condemn white supremacists. And that's just horrific, right? We don't have any place for white supremacists in the United States of America.
Ted Cruz took to Twitter. We should all agree racism is wrong. KKK is abhorrent. In Virginia, Marco Rubio called Trump's position unbelievable.
We cannot be a party that nominates someone who refuses to condemn white supremacists and the Ku Klux Klan. We cannot be a party that does that.
Trump appears increasingly disenchanted with that party and said today he's prepared to run as a third-party candidate if necessary.
The Republican Party is not treating me right, and they're not treating the people that I represent right.
And there's some evidence to support Trump's claim. A new CBS News Battleground poll found that more than half of Republicans in three Super Tuesday states, Georgia, Texas, and Virginia, say the Republican Party does not represent them well.
That poll also showed that voters in those states believe Trump offers the most optimistic message of any Republican still in the race. In Alabama tonight, Trump picked up the endorsement of Jeff Sessions, the state's junior senator and longtime advisor to Trump on immigration policy.
Major Garrett, thank you very much.
There are just 4 candidates on the stage. Their position has been determined by their standing in an average of the 5 most recent national polls as recognized by Fox News and conducted and released by March 1st. Here they are. Businessman Donald Trump. Texas Senator Ted Cruz. Florida Senator Marco Rubio. And Ohio Governor John Kasich.
Tonight's rules are simple. Up to 60 seconds for each answer, 30 seconds for each follow-up response. And if a candidate goes over the allotted time, you will hear this.
So pleasant.
Lovely.
We have a big crowd here, and while we expect the audience to be enthusiastic and responsive at times, and they have already been, we also expect them to be respectful, and we want the candidates to get their full time. So somewhere between a library and a Red Wings game. Am I right? Okay. Let's get started.
Mr. Trump, as you may have heard, the 2012 Republican nominee for President Mitt Romney had some things to say about you today. He said your domestic policy will lead to recession. He said your foreign policy will make us less safe. And then he listed what he said are your personal qualities, quoting now Romney on Trump, quote, the bullying, the greed, the showing off, the misogyny, the absurd third-grade theatrics. He challenged you to answer with substance, not insults. How do you answer Mitt Romney, sir?
Well, look, he was a failed candidate. He should have beaten President Obama very easy. He failed miserably, and it was an embarrassment to everybody, including the Republican Party. He went away. It looked like he went away on a vacation the last month. So I don't take that, and I guess obviously he wants to be relevant. He wants to be back in the game. As far as domestic policy and trade, which is killing our country, he said free trade, and I believe in free trade also. But if you look at China, and if you look at Japan, and if you look at Mexico, both at the border, by the way, where they're killing us, both at the border and with trade, and every other country we do business with, we are getting absolutely crushed on trade. And he said, free trade, I say free trade, great, but not when they're beating us so badly. With China, we're going to lose $505 billion in terms of trades. You just can't do it. Mexico, $58 billion. Japan, probably about, they don't know it yet, but about $109 billion. Every country we lose money with. As far as I'm concerned, we've got to reduce, we have to redo our trade deals 100%. I have the greatest business people in the world lined up to do it. We will make great trade deals.
Mr. Trump, Romney also talked about your position on race and the controversy over your failure to denounce David Duke on Sunday. You have repeatedly disavowed him since then, but I'd like to go deeper than that. What are your views on the Ku Klux Klan and white supremacists?
I totally disavow the Ku Klux Klan. I totally disavow David Duke. I've been doing it now for 2 weeks. You're probably about the 18th person that's asked me the question. It was very clear. That question was also talked about in the form of groups. I want to know, which groups are you talking about? You have to tell me which groups. Ultimately, he got to the Ku Klux Klan, which obviously I'm going to disavow. And by the way, if you look on my Twitter account, almost immediately after the program, they were disavowed again. You know, it's amazing. When I do something on Twitter, everybody picks it up, goes all over the place. But when I did this one, nobody ever picks it up. Take a look at my Twitter account.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. Senator Rubio.
Mr. Trump, how do you feel about the recent endorsement from David Duke?
I didn't even know he endorsed me. David Duke endorsed me? Okay. All right. I disavow. Okay?
Mr. Trump, how do you feel about the recent endorsement from David Duke?
I didn't even know he endorsed me. David Duke endorsed me? Okay. All right. I disavow.
This hour, Donald Trump will be holding a roundtable with Hispanic leaders in Las Vegas as he tries to keep positioning himself as the candidate with the most to offer to minority communities. And he and Hillary Clinton are not letting up on their racially charged attacks. Both are standing by their bigotry accusations.
You called last night Hillary Clinton a bigot. Previously, you called her policies bigoted. You directly called her a bigot.
And well, she is a bigot.
How is she bigoted? Bigoted is,
because
having hatred toward a
she's
particular
selling
group.
them down the tubes. Because she's not doing anything for those communities. She talks a good game,
so
but she doesn't do anything.
She has hatred
her policies
or
are bigoted. Her policies are bigoted because she knows they're not going to work.
He has built his campaign on prejudice and paranoia. We are facing a divisive candidate whose loose cannon temperament and his complete lack of preparation make him unqualified to be president.
Both camps have released dueling attack ads. Clinton's spot attempts to tie Trump to the KKK.
The reason a lot of Klan members like Donald Trump is because a lot of what he believes, we believe in. Donald Trump would be best for the job.
For president.
Yeah.
I am a farmer and white nationalist. Support Donald Trump.
Trump's ad shows Clinton defending her husband's controversial crime bill, criticized for its impact on minority communities.
They are often the kinds of kids that are called super predators. No conscience, no empathy. We can talk about why they ended up that way, but first we have to bring them to heel.
You called out President Clinton for defending Secretary Clinton's use of the term super predator back in the 90s when she supported the crime bill. Why did you call him out?
Because it was a racist term and everybody knew it was a racist term.
All right, so here we are in the campaign. Last night, Peter Hart, a pollster, he's a Democratic pollster, he pulled together in Wisconsin 4 committed Clinton voters, 4 committed Trump voters, and 4 undecideds. And he was asked them to name a scent or a smell that best describes the 2016 campaign. And his answers he got were sulfur, rotten eggs, garbage manure, and a skunk's fart, which I thought that you might really appreciate with all your notes there as an intro.
Yeah, wow, that was an interesting description. Yeah, it is. I think it's getting ugly. It's really getting ugly, and I'm not sure that this is actually good for the country. We're already riven with division, and it began with the left years ago by creating these pockets of identity. There's no hope for unity when everybody is pushing for division. I don't think Trump's racist. The only color he sees is green. But I want to make a point. The reason why it's getting ugly is this is the first time there is a Republican candidate who is acting like a Democratic candidate, meaning he's co-opting their attack. It used to be just the left would smear the right as being bigots. They would always get there first. They would do it to Romney. They would do it to everybody. He's actually playing their game. So now you have somebody from the right who's fighting the same way the left fights, and we're hearing about what an outrage is. But still, the right is not as dangerous as the left. There are no violent groups. Our activists aren't occupying streets or blocking traffic or spitting on people or encouraging the politics of looting. So I think there's a little bit of hypocrisy here that now everybody's screaming apocalypse because now the right happens to be as bad as the left.
So how does this set up for the debates, Eric? We're going into Labor Day I'm on vacation next week, so I'm already like thinking way ahead to Labor Day. But opinions are starting to harden. But then you set up towards the debates, and now when they get together, it's kind of awkward to sit there like, you're a racist. No, you're a racist.
I'm surprised they ratcheted up these attacks
so early.
Yes,
yeah.
A little early. I would have thought that was going to happen a little bit later in the cycle. Unless both of them have a couple of things. Each one has a thing that they don't want to talk about right now. On Donald Trump's side, he doesn't want to talk about his immigration, whether he's softening or not, because I think he's still working that out. And on Hillary's side, we have these new 13,000 emails that she failed to mention.
And Julian Assange.
And Julian Assange, who may have a September or an October surprise, who knows. And so both of them are using this race, bigot, you're a bigot thing to say, hey, look where we started with, right? Almost every show now on all 3 networks are starting with this bigoted ratcheting up of the attack on both sides, and the ads are playing into it. So maybe this is a little bit of strategy, helping both of them feel a little bit better about what's going on.
Jared Taylor, who calls himself a white advocate, told CNN Donald Trump may not like him, but he likes what Trump says.
Do you think that Donald Trump wants your support?
I don't know whether he wants it or not. I think he wants support from everyone. Whether or not he would agree with me is an entirely other matter. Remember, it is I who am supporting Donald Trump, not Donald Trump who's supporting me.
When Congressman Elijah Cummings calls you a racist, your reaction is what?
Well, I think the word has really gone down a long way because everybody's called a racist now. Her own party called Nancy Pelosi a racist 2 weeks ago. The word is so overused, it's such a disgrace. And I can tell you, I'm the least racist person there is in the world, as far as I'm concerned. And they use it almost when they run out of things to criticize you. They say, he's a racist, he's a racist. Now, in some cases, it's true. There are people that are racist, bad people. But with me, they have a hard time getting away with it, and they don't get away with it. And if you look at what I've done for African Americans between, look at criminal justice reform. President Obama tried so hard to get it, he couldn't get it. You look at opportunity zones, and then, of course, look at the opportunity zones are a tremendous success, by the way, not covered. But we did that as really an experiment. It's most successful. I think it's one of the most successful things ever done for the inner cities. It's turned out to be. Tim Scott of South Carolina worked very, very hard on it. So many other people did, and it's really become a great success. The biggest beneficiary are African American. The African American population, it's incredible what's happened. But between that, criminal justice reform, and then of course, the biggest thing is the lowest unemployment rate in the history of this country for African Americans. Lowest in the history by far. It's not even close.
But
so when you see those things, and when people, I mean, if the news, the lamestream or mainstream or whatever you want to call it, media or fake news, if it would be covered, people would feel a lot different. But they don't talk about that. They don't talk about opportunity zones. I don't think I've ever seen anything about opportunity zones. I don't think I've seen, you know, when I did criminal justice reform, everybody would say, oh, I won't tell you names because I'm not looking to build them up, but the biggest names were there on the other side, liberal side and conservative side. It was very bipartisan. But they don't even talk about it anymore. If somebody else did it, if President Obama did criminal justice reform, which is so good for the African Americans, so good, so you know, letting Alice out, getting our shit, 28 years left to serve. Jack Johnson, who was so unjustly convicted, the great heavyweight champion from the early 1900s. I mean, so many things we've done. If President Obama did that, it would have been great. When I do it, Steve, when I do it, people don't want to talk about it.
Another topic. Paul Ryan this week said, quote, if a person wants to be the nominee of the Republican Party, there can be no evasion and no games. They must reject any group or cause that is built on bigotry. He was talking about you.
But I've rejected. How many times do I have to reject? I've rejected David Duke. I've rejected the KKK, the Ku Klux Klan. From the time I'm 5 years old, I rejected them. I put it on Twitter last week. How many times? You know, it's an amazing thing with Twitter. I have 6 million, more than 6 million, and I have another 6 million with Facebook. I have like 13 or almost 14 million with Instagram. When I put out a minor message, everybody picks it up. Donald Trump just tweeted something very unimportant. Let me just explain. When I put out that I reject KKK and David Duke, nobody picks it up. You know why they don't? Because they don't want to pick it up. They pick it up. You pick it up. Everyone else picks it up. You saw simultaneously, practically at the same time. They don't want to pick it up. Now, I have been asked this question so many times. I have rejected it so many times. In fact,
what did you think about Ryan saying that, though? That's, I guess, my question.
I don't know. Well, don't forget, he's getting a lot of his information from you guys. So when I tweet about a rejection, almost right after that show ended, because maybe I wasn't clear or something. I mean, how many times do I have to say it? Don't forget, I told CNN when Chris Christie endorsed me, a very good endorsement, and one of the questions, that question was asked, and I rejected it there. That news conference was like a day before. So I said to myself, how many times do I have to reject or disavow?
Let me ask you this question. What about David Duke is saying to his supporters and followers, vote for Donald Trump. White supremacists are saying, vote. Do you want those votes?
No, I don't want them, and I don't want him to say it. I can't help if he says it, but I don't want it, and if he says it, John, if he says it, he says it, okay? Do I want it? No.
And do I want the supporters?
No, I don't want anything.
What do you think of white supremacists, by the way?
I don't like any group of hate. Hate groups are not for me. But I've said this before. The press hates me to say it. They just don't want to pick it up.
You're thinking a little bit more about the general election. In December of last year, you said, talking about Hillary Clinton, you said, we view this as war. And then you asked the audience, don't we view this as war? Do you still view an election campaign against Hillary Clinton as war?
A little bit, yeah. Now, look, it's highly competitive. The last person she wants to run against is me. I can tell you that. I know that. And, you know, it was sort of interesting. One of your competitors said, I know that Hillary Clinton wants to run against Donald Trump. And I called him. I said, listen, here's the story. If they say they want to run against me, that means they don't want to run against me. Do you understand that? Because that's the way it's like a game of chess. But I know for a fact, and you know for a fact, the last person she wants to run against is me. I've won numerous polls against Hillary, and I haven't even started on Hillary. I only had one brief moment 4 weeks ago. And because of that moment, Hillary went way, way down, and Bernie got credit for it. They said he was running a great campaign. Had she not given me that moment with her and Bill, Bernie would not be nearly as close. Now, Bernie's not going to win, okay, anyway. But she went way down in that period of time. And
The last person she wants to run against is me, and I will tell you, I will beat her. And I beat her in a lot of polls, as you know, but people don't say that.
All right, Mr. Trump, we're going to have to leave it there. We've run out of time. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm in Washington today to meet with my economic team about trade policy and major tax cuts and reform. We are renegotiating trade deals and making them good for the American worker, and it's about time. Our economy is now strong. The stock market continues to hit record highs. Unemployment is at a 16-year low, and businesses are more optimistic than ever before. Companies are moving back to the United States and bringing many thousands of jobs with them. We have already created over 1 million jobs since I took office. We will be discussing economic issues in greater detail later this afternoon. But based on the events that took place over the weekend in Charlottesville, Virginia, I would like to provide the nation with an update on the ongoing federal response to the horrific attack and violence that was witnessed by everyone. I just met with FBI Director Christopher Wray and Attorney General Jeff Sessions. The Department of Justice has opened a civil rights investigation into the deadly car attack that killed one innocent American and wounded 20 others. To anyone who acted criminally in this weekend's racist violence, you will be held fully accountable. Justice will be delivered. As I said on Saturday, we condemn in the strongest possible terms this egregious display of hatred, bigotry, and violence. It has no place in America. And as I have said many times before, no matter the color of our skin, we all live under the same laws. We all salute the same great flag. And we are all made by the same Almighty God. We must love each other, show affection for each other, and unite together in condemnation of hatred, bigotry, and violence. We must rediscover the bonds of love and loyalty that bring us together as Americans. Racism is evil, and those who cause violence in its name are criminals and thugs, including the KKK, neo-Nazis, white supremacists, and other hate groups that are repugnant to everything we hold dear as Americans. We are a nation founded on the truth that all of us are created equal. We are equal in the eyes of our Creator. We are equal under the law, and we are equal under our Constitution. Those who spread violence in the name of bigotry strike at the very core of America. 2 days ago, a young American woman, Heather Heyer, was tragically killed. Her death fills us with grief, and we send her family our thoughts, our prayers, and our love. We also mourn the 2 Virginia state troopers who died in service to their community, their Commonwealth, and their country. Troopers Jay Cullen and Burke Bates exemplify the very best of America, and our hearts go out to their families, their friends, and every member of American law enforcement. These 3 fallen Americans embody the goodness and decency of our nation. In times such as these, America has always shown its true character, responding to hate with love, division with unity, and violence with an unwavering resolve for justice. As a candidate, I promise to restore law and order to our country, and our federal law enforcement agencies are following through on that pledge. We will spare no resource in fighting so that every American child can grow up free from violence and fear. We will defend and protect the sacred rights of all Americans, and we will work together so that every citizen in this blessed land is free to follow their dreams in their hearts and to express the love and joy in their souls. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you very much. Benefit.
Let me ask you, why did you wait so long? I did not.
I didn't wait long. I didn't wait long. I didn't wait long. I wanted to make sure, unlike most politicians, that what I said was correct, not make a quick statement. The statement I made on Saturday, the first statement, was a fine statement, but you don't make statements that direct unless you know the fact. It takes a little while to get the facts. You still don't know the facts. And it's a very, very important process to me, and it's a very important statement. So I don't want to go quickly and just make a statement for the sake of making a political statement. I want to know the facts. If you go back to my, in fact, I brought it. As I said on, remember this, Saturday, we condemn in the strongest possible terms this egregious display of hatred, bigotry, and violence. It has no place in America. And then I went on from there. Now, here's the thing. Excuse me. Take it nice and easy. Here's the thing. When I make a statement, I like to be correct. I want the facts. This event just happened. In fact, a lot of the event didn't even happen yet as we were speaking. This event just happened. Before I make a statement, I need the facts. So I don't want to rush into a statement. So making the statement when I made it was excellent. In fact, the young woman, who I hear is a fantastic young woman, and it was on NBC, her mother wrote me and said through, I guess, Twitter, social media, the nicest things, and I very much appreciated that. I hear she was a fine, really actually an incredible young woman. But her mother on Twitter thanked me for what I said. And honestly, if the press were not fake, and if it was honest, the press would have said what I said was very nice. But unlike you, and unlike the media, before I make a statement, I like to know the facts. They don't. How about a couple of infrastructure questions?
Was that terrorism?
Say it. What?
The CEO of Walmart said you missed a critical opportunity to help bring the country together. Did you?
Not at all. I think the country, look, you take a look. I've created over 1 million jobs since I'm president. The country is booming. The stock market is setting records. We have the highest employment numbers we've ever had in the history of our country. We're doing record business. We have the highest levels of enthusiasm. So the head of Walmart, who I know, who's a very nice guy, was making a political statement. I mean, ask him how he's doing. I do it the same way, and you know why? Because I want to make sure, when I make a statement, that the statement is correct. And there was no way of making a correct statement that early. I had to see the facts, unlike a lot of reporters. I didn't know David Duke was there. I wanted to see the facts. And the facts, as they started coming out, were very well stated. In fact, everybody said his statement was beautiful. If he would have made it sooner, that would have been good. I couldn't have made it sooner because I didn't know all of the facts. Frankly, people still don't know all of the facts. It was very important, excuse me. It was very important to me to get the facts out, and correctly, because if I would have made a fast statement, and the first statement was made without knowing much other than what we were seeing. The second statement was made after, with knowledge, with great knowledge. There's still things, there's still things that people don't know. I want to make a statement with knowledge. I wanted to know the facts. Okay.
Two questions. Was this terrorism? And can you tell us how you're feeling about your chief strategist?
Well, I think the driver of the car is a disgrace to himself, his family, and this country. And that is, you can call it terrorism, you can call it murder, You can call it whatever you want. I would just call it as the fastest one to come up with a good verdict. That's what I'd call it. Because there is a question. Is it murder? Is it terrorism? And then you get into legal semantics. The driver of the car is a murderer. And what he did was a horrible, horrible, inexcusable thing.
Can you tell us how you're feeling about your chief strategist, Mr. Bannon? Can you talk about that?
I would echo Maggie's question. Steve Bannon is.
I never spoke to Mr. Bannon about it.
Tell us broadly what your. Do you still have confidence
Well,
in
we'll
Steve?
see. And look, I like Mr. Bannon. He's a friend of mine. But Mr. Bannon came on very late. You know that. I went through 17 senators, governors, and I won all the primaries. Mr. Bannon came on very much later than that. And I like him. He's a good man. He is not a racist, I can tell you that. He's a good person. He actually gets a very unfair press in that regard. He's a good person, and I think the press treats him, frankly, very unfairly.
Do you have confidence? Senator McCain has called on you to defend your National Security Advisor, H.R. McMaster, against
I've
some of
already
these
done
attacks.
it. I did it the last time.
And he called on it again, linking the
Senator
tweet
McCain?
to the alt-right. And
Senator
saying
McCain, you mean the one who voted against Obamacare?
And he said
Who
that
is Senator? You mean Senator McCain who voted against us getting good health care?
McCain said that the alt-right is behind these attacks, and he linked that same group to those who perpetrated the attack in Charlottesville.
Well, I don't know. I can't tell you. I'm sure Senator McCain must know what he's talking about. But when you say the alt-right, define alt-right to me. You define it. Go ahead.
Well, I'm saying,
define it for me. Come on, let's go. Define
Senator
it for me.
McCain defined them as the same group.
Okay, what about the alt-left that came charging at him? Excuse me. What about the alt-left that came charging at the, as you say, the alt-right? Do they have any semblance of guilt?
This is Senator McCain's statement.
Let me ask you this. What about the fact that they came charging with clubs in their hands, swinging clubs? Do they have any problem? I think they do. So, as far as I'm concerned, that was a horrible, horrible day. Wait a minute. I'm not finished. I'm not finished, fake news. That was a horrible day. I will tell you something. I watched those very closely, much more closely than you people watched it. And you have you had a group on one side that was bad, and you had a group on the other side that was also very violent. And nobody wants to say that, but I'll say it right now. You had a group on the other side that came charging in without a permit, and they were very, very violent. Go ahead.
Do you think that what you call the alt-left is the same as neo-Nazis?
All of those people, excuse me, I've condemned neo-Nazis. I've condemned many different groups, but not all of those people were neo-Nazis, believe me. Not all of those people were white supremacists by any stretch. Those people were also there because they wanted to protest the taking down of a statue, Robert E. Lee. So, excuse me, and you take a look at some of the groups and you see, and you know it if you were honest reporters, which in many cases you're not, but many of those people were there to protest the taking down of the statue of Robert E. Lee. So, this week it's Robert E. Lee. I noticed that Stonewall Jackson's coming down. I wonder, is it George Washington next week, and is it Thomas Jefferson the week after? You know, you really do have to ask yourself, where does it stop? But they were there to protest, excuse me, you take a look the night before, they were there to protest the taking down of the statue of Robert E. Lee. Infrastructure question, go ahead.
Should statues of Robert E. Lee stay up?
I would say that's up to a local town, community, or the federal government, depending on where it is located.
Are you against the Confederacy?
About race relations in America, and do you think things have gotten worse or better since you took office?
I think they've gotten better or the same. Look, they've been frayed for a long time, and you can ask President Obama about that because he'd make speeches about it. But I believe that the fact that I've brought in, it will be soon, millions of jobs. You see where companies are moving back into our country. I think that's going to have a tremendous positive impact on race relations. We have companies coming back into our country. We have 2 car companies that just announced. We have Foxconn in Wisconsin just announced. We have many companies, I say, pouring back into the country. I think that's going to have a huge positive impact on race relations. You know why? It's jobs. What people want now, they want jobs. They want great jobs with good pay. And when they have that, you watch how race relations will be. And I'll tell you, we're spending a lot of money on the inner cities. We're fixing the inner cities. We're doing far more than anybody's done with respect to the inner cities. It's a priority for me, and it's very important.
Mr. President, are you putting what you're calling the alt-left and white supremacists on the same moral plane?
I'm not putting anybody on a moral plane. What I'm saying is this. You had a group on one side and you had a group on the other, and they came at each other with clubs, and it was vicious, and it was horrible, and it was a horrible thing to watch. But there is another side. There was a group on this side, you can call them the left, you've just called them the left, that came violently attacking the other group. So you can say what you want, but that's the way it is.
On both sides, sir? You said there was hatred, there was violence on both sides.
Well, I do think there's blame. Yes, I think there's blame on both sides. You look at both sides. I think there's blame on both sides, and I have no doubt about it, and you don't have any doubt about it either. And if you reported it accurately, you would say.
Kill the person. Heather hired
Charlottesville. They showed up in Charlottesville
Excuse me.
to protest.
Excuse me. They didn't put themselves down as you. And you had some very bad people in that group. But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides. You had people in that group. Excuse me. I saw the same pictures as you did. You had people in that group that were there to protest the taking down of, to them, a very, very important statue and the renaming of a park from Robert E. Lee to another name. No, George Washington was a slave owner. Was George Washington a slave owner? So will George Washington now lose his status? Are we going to take down, excuse me, are we going to take down statues to George Washington? How about Thomas Jefferson? What do you think of Thomas Jefferson? You like him? Okay, good. Are we going to take down the statue? Because he was a major slave owner. Now, we're going to take down his statue. So you know what? It's fine. You're changing history, you're changing culture, and you had people, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally. But you had many people in that group other than neo-Nazis and white nationalists, okay? And the press has treated them absolutely unfairly. Now, in the other group also, you had some fine people, but you also had troublemakers, and you see them come with the black outfits and with the helmets and with the baseball bats. You had a lot of bad people in the other group too.
Treated unfairly, sir. I'm sorry, I just didn't understand what you were saying. You were saying the press has treated white nationalists unfairly?
No.
I just didn't understand what you were saying.
No. There were people in that rally, and I looked the night before. If you look, there were people protesting very quietly the taking down of the statue of Robert E. Lee. I'm sure in that group there were some bad ones. The following day, it looked like they had some rough, bad people, neo-Nazis, white nationalists, whatever you want to call them. But you had a lot of people in that group that were there to innocently protest and very legally protest because, you know, I don't know if you know, they had a permit. The other group didn't have a permit. So I only tell you this. There are two sides to a story. I thought what took place was a horrible moment for our country, a horrible moment. But there are two sides to the country. Does anybody have a final? Does anybody have? You have an infrastructure.
What makes you think you can get an infrastructure bill? You didn't get health care.
Well, you know, I'll tell you. We came very close with health care. Unfortunately, John McCain decided to vote against it at the last minute. You'll have to ask John McCain why he did that. But we came very close to health care. We will end up getting health care. But we'll get the infrastructure, and actually infrastructure is something that I think will have bipartisan support on. I actually think Democrats will go along with the infrastructure.
President, have you spoken to the family? Have you spoken to the family of the victim of the car attack?
No, I'll be reaching out. When
will you be reaching out?
I thought that the statement put out, the mother's statement, I thought was a beautiful statement. I always tell you, it was something that I really appreciated. I thought it was terrific, and really under the kind of stress that she's under and the heartache that she's under, I thought putting out that statement to me was really something I won't forget. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Do you plan to go to Charlottesville, Mr. President?
You're helping to heal the nation.
I own a house in Charlottesville.
Will you go to?
Does anyone know I own a house in Charlottesville?
Where is it?
Oh boy, it's going to be. It's in Charlottesville. You'll see.
Is it near the winery or something?
It is the winery.
Will you go to visit and try to?
I mean, I know a lot about Charlottesville. Charlottesville is a great place that's been very badly hurt over the last couple of days. But I own actually one of the largest wineries in the United States. It's in Charlottesville.
What do you think needs to be done to overcome the racial divides?
Well, I really think jobs can have a big impact. I think if we continue to create jobs, over 1 million, substantially more than 1 million, and you see just the other day, the car companies coming in with Fox, Foxconn. I think if we continue to create jobs at levels that I'm creating jobs, I think that's going to have a tremendous impact, positive impact on race relations.
And what you said today, how do you think that will impact the racial?
Because the people are going to be working, they're going to be making a lot of money, much more money than they ever thought possible.
I mean, your remarks
and that's going to
today.
happen. And the other thing, very important, I believe wages will start going up. They haven't gone up for a long time. I believe wages now, because the economy is doing so well with respect to employment and unemployment, I believe wages will start to go up. I think that'll have a tremendously positive impact on race relations. You have Kate in San Francisco, who was killed. Kate. You see, in the good old days, law enforcement acted a lot quicker than this. A lot quicker. In the good old days, they'd rip him out of that seat so fast. But today, everybody's politically correct. Our country's going to hell with being politically correct. I am concerned about the rise of any group of hate. I don't like it. Any group of hate. I am, whether it's white supremacy, whether it's any other kind of supremacy, whether it's Antifa, whether it's any group of hate. I am very concerned about it, and I'll do something about it.
The 1994 crime bill. That's the super predator bill. So he did the super predator bill. And when you look at it, but Mark Levin is right. He's 100% right. No matter what you say, it won't make any difference. And I have to say, I've said it many times, and let me be clear again. I condemn the KKK. I condemn all white supremacists. I condemn the Proud Boys. I don't know much about the Proud Boys, almost nothing, but I condemn that. But he should condemn also Antifa. Antifa is a horrible group of people. They kill people. What they do to people, and they're causing insurrection. They're causing riots. He doesn't want to do that, but the press doesn't go after him, and that's a really bad group of people. But I condemn them, and if I say it 100 times, it won't be enough because it's fake news.
Mr. President, I played earlier. Joe Biden is out there all day today saying you've never condemned white nationalists. You just did. You've never condemned segregation, as you just did. You've never condemned the KKK. You have. And you've never condemned David Duke. You are condemning all of them tonight, on record tonight, sir. Is that correct?
Yes, but I've condemned them in the past. For years, I've condemned people, and I think almost everything that you mentioned. What hasn't been condemned is his crime bill, where he talks about super predators. And
well, let me ask you this.
That was the worst thing that ever happened to the black community, for the young men and women of the black community. That was Sleepy Joe Biden.
Mark Levin went through, and we've done it on this program too, an exhaustive examination of Joe Biden and his history on racial issues. He did refer to Robert Byrd, the former Klansman,
That's right.
as my friend and mentor. That's the man that filibustered the Civil Rights Act. That's the man against the Voting Rights Act. And Robert Byrd was the man that Joe Biden partnered with to stop busing and integration of schools because, I'll use the words of Joe, he didn't want his kids going to schools that were a racial jungle. Are you calling on Joe Biden to apologize to anybody tonight? Are you condemning him for his remarks?
Because what he did was terrible, and he has to do it.
This is a guy who continued to taste and smell and feel the suffering of the people of his state. He tasted it. That's why it was so deeply ingrained in him. It wasn't just a moral obligation. This guy remembered. And he unapologetically has been pointed out, did everything to improve the lives of the people of Delaware by stealing all the money from Delaware, Tennessee, Texas, California that he could possibly get. You remember, Governor, there were 2 campaigns ago, he's getting beat up for trying to move, was it 2 campaigns ago, to have the FBI move down to West Virginia. And the national press was beating him up. And I was on the floor with him, and he just had getting ripped in a press conference about that. And he, you know how he used to grab you by the arm and walk me back, he said, Joe, I hope they keep throwing me in the briar patch. But I tell you what, you West Virginians owe a lot of people in Delaware for a lot of money we should have gotten and you got. I just want you to know that. So be nice to the rest of us. And by the way, if you doubt it, you just drive here. You cross the Robert C. Byrd Drive, the Robert C. Appalachian Highway, the Robert C. Library Learning Center, the Robert C. Byrd Clinic, the Robert C. Federal Building in Charleston, and on and on and on. But ladies and gentlemen, of course, it's more than the name we're not going to forget. It's his courage. He died like he lived. He died like he lived his life. He never stopped fighting. How many people would have hung on as long as he did? How many people would have had the ability to get back out of that hospital bed and get in a wheelchair and come in and vote for this? He never stopped thinking about his people and the things he cared about. Speaking several weeks ago, this week actually, when Robert Byrd said, quote, like Jefferson and Adams, I'm inspired to continue serving the land I love to the very best of my abilities for the whole of my years. Well, he served the land he loved. He served the people he loved. He served the people who were in his blood. And because of that service, you have gained greatly. And with his loss, you're the first who will feel that loss. But it's not just West Virginia alone. It's all of us.
Looks like Joe Biden has stuck his foot all the way in his mouth.
Uh-oh, I'm in trouble.
In an interview with The Breakfast Club co-host Charlemagne, the presidential hopeful made an egregious comment that has people questioning if he's worthy of their vote. Towards the end of the almost 20-minute interview, Charlemagne touched on an issue of great concern. Who will be Joe's running mate?
Black people saved your political life in the primaries this year. They have things they want from you, and one of them is a black woman running mate. What do you say to them?
What I say to them is that I'm not acknowledging acknowledging anybody who is being considered, but I guarantee you there are multiple black women being considered. Multiple.
Charlemagne had a follow-up question, but got interrupted by someone off camera saying their time was up. The radio host instead invited Biden to come back, but Joe's response was off-putting.
Listen, you got to come see us when you come to New York, VP Biden.
I will.
It's a long way until November. We got more questions.
You got more questions, but I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
The comment may have been directed just at Charlemagne, but it plays into the false notion that Democrats own the black vote and don't have to earn the black vote. Furthermore, a privileged white man does not get to dictate what is and isn't black. And unfortunately for Joe, Twitter is on a tirade, calling him entitled, an idiot, and wondering if he truly is the lesser of two evils. But what do you think? Is Biden the better choice over Trump? Let us know in the comment section below. For HipHollywood.com, I'm Vanessa Barnett.
For those unbelievably racist comments last week.
Oh, Joe Biden thinks I'm not black?
Joe Biden does not think I'm black.
Joe Biden said, if I don't vote for him, I'm not black.
Joe Biden doesn't think I'm black because I'm not a Democrat, but let me tell you this, Joe Biden, you cannot shame me to run it back to your Democrat party.
I'm black, okay? I don't support Joe Biden. I support Donald J. Trump. Thank you very much.
I am black, and I am not voting for Joe Biden. I am not voting for Democrats. I am voting Trump all the way.
Well, in case you've missed it, Joe Biden said if you're not voting Democrat, if you're not voting for him, you're not black. He was that blunt, that racist, and that's what triggered all the backlash. This is a major issue. And I don't know a lot about Kanye West. I know he's a big deal, and I know he's spot on about African American rights in the US and how Biden, by those words, has besmirched them.
They were fighting for us to have the right to our opinion, not the right to vote for whoever the white liberals said black people are supposed to vote for.
Well said, Kanye West.
We should challenge students in these schools to have advanced placement programs in these schools. We have this notion that somehow if you're poor, you cannot do it. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids. Wealthy kids, black kids, Asian kids. No, I really mean it, but think how we think about it. We think, no, we're going to dumb it down. They can do anything anybody else can do, give it a shot.
You cannot go to a 7-Eleven or a Dunkin' Donuts unless you have a slight Indian accent. I'm not joking.
Look at what they value and look at their budget and what they're proposing. Romney wants to he said in the first 100 days, he's going to let the big banks once again write their own rules. Unchain Wall Street. They're going to put you all back in chains. Even call centers, which rushed overseas in the hundreds of thousands. How many times you get the call? I'd like to talk to you about your credit card.
Joe Biden is under fire this evening on comments he made about working alongside segregationist senators in the past.
Biden recalling his early Senate career, bringing up two segregationist senators, Herman Talmadge and James Eastland, who called African Americans an inferior race. I was in a caucus with James O. Eastland, Biden said. He never called me boy, he always called me son. At least there was some civility. We got things done. We didn't agree on much of anything. We got things done.
I think the two-party system, although my Democratic colleagues don't like me saying this, I think the two-party system is good for the South and good for the Negro, good for the black in the South. Other than the fact that they still call me boy, I think they've changed their mind.
30 seconds or less. What kind of a chance would a northeastern liberal like Joe Biden stand in the South if you were running in Democratic primaries against Southerners like Mark Warner and John Edwards?
Better than anybody else. And you don't know my state. My state was a slave state. My state is a border state. My state is the 8th largest black population in the country. My state is anything from a northeast liberal state.
Choosing Joe to be my vice president was one of the best decisions I ever made.
Not the first sort of mainstream African American who is articulate and bright and clean and a nice looking guy. I mean, that's a storybook, man.
Guy whose party believes that if you're a Republican and you support President Trump's agenda, you're a racist. Here's Joe Biden, September 15th. That ain't 1960. I'm talking 2020. Joe Biden.
American public, the blinders have been taken off. They've all of a sudden seen a hell of a lot clearer. They've seen, geez, the reason I was able to stay sequestered in my home is because some black woman was able to stack the grocery shelf.
Is that the reason you've been able to stay home, Mr. Biden? Because some black woman stocked the grocery shelf?
I just want to thank you for always seeking out the truth. Remember to question everything. Deep State.